Have you ever felt the world you built so carefully unravel in a single heartbeat? Emily's morning had all the trappings of success: a tailored blazer, the scent of fresh coffee, and the buzz of compliments after a flawless presentation. But by mid-afternoon, the email from Human Resources sat in her inbox like a verdict: position eliminated. The city's hum grew distant as she packed her desk, the clicking of her heels against polished floors echoing emptiness. Photographs of milestone celebrations, graduation hugs, birthday candles felt like relics from someone else's life. When the security guard escorted her out, his polite nod felt like a final curtain call on a show she never wanted to leave. On the flight home, every cloud beneath the plane's wing became a question she couldn't answer. Was this sudden layoff a sign to slow down, or simply the latest blow in a career she thought was unshakable? Pennsylvania's green patchwork fields stretched out toward the horizon, stirring memories of childhood bike rides and her mother's garden heavy with lilacs. The thought of returning to the mint green clapboard house she'd left behind both comforted and terrified her. She wondered if the woman who once chased fireflies in that yard could still find a spark of hope amid this new darkness. Stepping through the front door, Emily was greeted by the familiar squeak of the hallway floorboards and the faint smell of lavender from the garden below her bedroom window. Boxes of childhood treasures lined the closet: ticket stubs from the county fair, a tin of pressed daisies, and a stack of journals filled with teenage daydreams. Tucked between old textbooks, she discovered a DNA testing kit she'd ordered on a whim 2 years earlier, then forgotten. Her pulse quickened as she remembered the idle curiosity that had driven her to spit in that vial. On impulse, she filled it out and dropped it in the mailbox that afternoon, her chest tight with a sudden thrill she hadn't felt in months. What would you do if a forgotten curiosity hinted at secrets you never knew you needed? Days passed in a slow blur of rain-streaked mornings and long, silent nights. Then, the envelope came, thick with possibility. With trembling fingers, Emily slit it open and stared at the printed chart. 2 half-siblings, living names and places she'd never imagined. In that instant, the distance between her logic and her heart yawned wide. Questions spilled through her mind. Why had she never known? What stories lay buried beneath her own family's careful narrative? She pressed her forehead against the cool window pane, watching raindrops race downhill as doubt and longing swirled inside her. Grief surfaced in unexpected moments: at breakfast, when she reached for her mother's favorite mug, on her evening run past the old playground, where the swings clanged in the wind like half-remembered laughter. She felt both exhilarated by the mystery and paralyzed by the weight of potential rejection. Was she ready to face the past she'd packed away along with her ambition? In the hush of her childhood sanctuary, she realized that some truths demanded courage not only to uncover, but to embrace. Late one night, Emily sat at her desk, the phone screen illuminating her determined expression. She dialed the number for the closest matcher, future half-brother Davidand, listened as it rang through her fears. When he finally answered with a soft, "Hello?" her voice cracked, but she pressed on, introducing herself with a rush of words she didn't know she'd saved. His initial surprise gave way to curiosity. She heard his pulse quicken in the rhythm of his breathing. They agreed to talk again the next day, bridging 2 lives with cautious hope. Would you dare to follow a trail of DNA threads into your past? The next afternoon, Emily sat in a sunlit cafe where the wooden tables were scarred by years of whispered secrets and hurried confessions. As David approached, she noticed the same gentle tilt in his smile that she glimpsed in her own reflection. His nervous laughter reminded her of the rehearsed predictability she'd left behind in the corporate world. Over steaming mugs of Earl Grey, her mother's favorite, they shared snapshots of their separate lives, his time teaching high school, her late nights crafting ad campaigns. When David mentioned the lullaby their mothers both sang at bedtime, a lump rose in Emily's throat. In that fragile harmony, she felt the first true echo of belonging. By the time their conversation ended, Emily's chest felt lighter, as if each word had chipped away at walls she didn't realize she'd built. They lingered over dessert, a slice of cherry pie that tasted like summer, and spoke of meeting again face to face in the very town their parents once called home. The awkwardness of strangers became the tender outline of siblings discovering each other. How might a simple melody open the door to a stranger's heart? A week later, Emily stepped onto David's front porch, inhaling the scent of basil from his potted plants. Inside, sunlight spilled through kitchen windows, illuminating a well-worn wooden spoon resting beside the stove. He plucked it up and revealed faint initials carved into its handle marks left by their grandmother decades ago. As they stirred simmering tomato sauce, their conversation wove between laughter and shared sorrow, their mother's untold stories, their father's quiet regrets. Emily found herself leaning into moments of silence, savoring the comfort of someone who understood without explanation. In that kitchen, kindness was measured in passing a spoon, offering a seat at the table, and listening without judgment. When David slid a plate of freshly baked bread across the counter, Emily felt a warmth she hadn't known since childhood holidays. They toasted to new beginnings with glasses of iced tea sweetened with mint from his garden. In each small gesture, she recognized healing unfolding not as a grand revelation, but as a series of compassionate acts that bridged their separate histories. Later, as dusk settled and fireflies began their silent dance in the yard, Emily and David sat on the porch swing, sharing dreams they'd tucked away in the creases of their hearts. They spoke of regrets left unsaid and hopes yet to be claimed. In the hush between their words, Emily realized that true family was less about shared blood and more about the courage to heal together. Could opening your home to someone new teach you as much about yourself as it does about them? Months later, the old barn behind their farmhouse had transformed into a gathering place bathed in lantern light. A long table draped in plaid linens stretched beneath strings of soft bulbs, and cousins now 10 strong-brought dishes filled with stories of their own. Children darted between hay bales, their laughter mingling with the cricket's song. Emily watched her new family exchange memories under the oak tree their grandfather had planted, each face glowing with warmth. In that moment, every step that led her here, the layoff, the envelope, the phone call, felt like a thread guiding her toward a tapestry richer than any she'd imagined. Looking out at faces she once considered strangers, Emily felt quiet purpose settle in her chest. She knew that life's unexpected detours often carried the greatest gifts, the chance to rediscover kindness, to rewrite old narratives, to build a legacy not in boardrooms but around kitchen tables and bonfire circles. Family, she realized, isn't only given, it's chosen, nurtured, and celebrated in the simplest acts of love. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing for more tales of unexpected connections and healing moments. Disclaimer: this story is an original work for The Kind Story, created by human writers with AI assistance for formatting or narration. It reflects real-life inspired emotions and adheres to YouTube's community guidelines and monetization policies.